Okay, perfect. So since I am already signed in here, there we go. Since I am already signed in
Put yourself
here,
on mute, David.
this will just bring us right to our home tab. So this is where all of the sheets will be stored. So we'll go to the Create New tab real quickly, and there's actually 3 ways to get started in SmartSheet. So the first would be to create just a new blank sheet, and that's if you really want to customize your project from the ground up. The next would be to use one of our ready-made templates. And we've got tons of different templates that we've already pre-created that are available for use if you want to already have a structure in your sheet. But for right now, we're actually going to be importing existing data from Excel, but you can import from Microsoft Project, Google Spreadsheet, Trello, and so on and so forth. So you really can pull in any type of work that you've already been working on. So as I mentioned previously for this scenario, I've already been working on this project in Excel, and I want to get this data more organized for my team. So I'm going to go ahead and import. So as you can see, we're just going to take just a quick walk around the sheet, but as you can see, the data is already looking pretty similar to how it looks in Excel. So you can see that there's the familiar rows as well as the columns here that you can move around if you need to. And our toolbar, which is going to be over on the left side of the page, is really where we can start to format our data, and we can start organizing this data to be a little bit more useful for us. So right over here is where that toolbar is. So first thing I'm going to do, because I do know that the budget and the actuals column are monetary values. So once I have those both selected, I'm going to move over to the toolbar, and I'm just real quickly going to click the currency format. And I know that they are United States dollars, and as you can see, they just completely get added in there right away. But those decimals are looking a little bit cumbersome. So what I'm going to do is actually move over onto that toolbar once again, and I'm going to decrease the decimals. We don't really need that information right now at this point. And so we're going to touch on a couple of ways to get this data looking more organized, so when my team jumps in later, they can easily see the workflow for this overall release project. So first thing I'm going to do is actually add in some hierarchies here. And the reason I want to add this in is because I want to get some relationships in here, because I want to have a higher level overall view of the stages throughout the project, as well as how the nitty-gritty subtasks or details are related. So these 3 tasks here, I know all belong to the overarching layout theme. And I'd like to represent that within SmartSheet. So I'm going to select these 3, and I'm just going to move over onto the toolbar again, and I'm going to click the indent button located right here. And as you can see, that now has added in the hierarchy that I was looking for. So there is that kind of primary task with all the subtasks underneath. So I'll go ahead and I'll add that in throughout the rest of my sheet. And the great thing about SmartSheet is that I know that the East Coast launch and the West Coast launch are actually subtasks of going live, which is a subtask of my release section. So once I have the East Coast and the West Coast launch selected, I can click that indent button one more time, and there's now subtasks in my sheet, which is going to help me even more. now that I have those added in, the next thing I'm going to be adding is to get some coloring amongst these hierarchies so I can direct my attention right away to certain stages throughout the release, especially as these are expanded. So I'll go ahead and I will collapse all three and then simply select all three once more. And I'm going to move over onto the toolbar and I'm going to change the background color. And I'm just going to make it a light blue. And then we'll expand all. And as you can see, it's already much easier to tell what would be a primary task compared to one of these subtasks here. And another great thing about using these hierarchies is that I can actually add in a formula here that's going to summarize all of these different numbers in my budget column. So I'll open that up. And once I have that cell selected, I'll move down to my function button. I'll use sum. Perfect. So the formula I just added in there is just real quickly telling the sheet to count all of the values in this particular column's subtask and then summarize them in this overarching row of the layout section. And so what I'll do is once I see that cross here, I can move that over to copy the formula over, and then I'll add this in throughout the rest of my sheet. So now when I go to expand all, I now have totals for each of my different sections, which is really going to help me know where I'm at compared to where I need to be. We'll go ahead and save the sheet real quick. And so now that I've organized my tasks for this project, I want to get my team involved. So I'm going to start assigning these tasks out so that my team members can be held accountable for each task's progress. So what we'll go ahead and do here is just right-click up on this column, and then we're going to insert a column to the right. And so what we'll do is we'll say assigned to. We'll make it a contact list column. So it's already, so with these smart columns in SmartSheet, you can have columns that are designed to intake a particular type of information. So in this case, the contact list is going to intake any of my contacts from my SmartSheet contacts that I've already uploaded in here. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And we'll start assigning these out. So I do know that my colleague Dwayne has been working on the font section, and he's actually in charge of the entire layout section. So I'm going to go ahead and assign all of these to him. Now, I know my colleague Steve has been working on products. Well, my outside vendor, Vince, has been working on services. Okay, and then for the release section, my colleague Randy is actually in charge of this entire section, so we'll go ahead and assign him out. Perfect. And then once that's in there, we'll just go ahead and save the sheet real quickly. So now that I've started assigning these out, there's really two ways to share this project with my team. So the first would be the sharing tab at the bottom of my sheet to share the entire project. And so if you just click down here, you can see I've already shared this out, but just as an example, I'll go ahead and take you through it. So I do want to get my colleague Dwayne involved. All I would need to do is, because he's already loaded into my SmartSheet contact, is start typing his name. It'll populate with his email here. I'll click on that, and then right over here is where you can set different permission settings for your colleagues and whoever needs to be viewing the sheet. So you could make him an admin on the sheet, an editor that can share the sheet with others, an editor that cannot share the sheet with others, or a viewer only. So for now, we'll go ahead and make him an editor that can share, and then we will simply say project from now on. Okay, and so that just immediately sent out an email to my colleague Dwayne. He would just need to click the link on that email, and then he'd automatically be able to view my sheet here. So the second way to kind of get this information shared out to colleagues would be if I wanted to use an update request. And an update request is really going to be a great way to share particular data with a team member or vendor, for example, without sharing the rest of the project data on the sheet. So since Vince happens to be one of the vendors for this project, I'll just go ahead and select the task that he's assigned to, move over, select the row menu, and then select Send Update Request. Okay, and so like I was saying earlier, the great thing is that we can customize beyond this. So I don't want him seeing the actuals, the budget, the percent difference. However, I do want him to be able to make some comments, see the finish and start date, as well as tasking and whatnot, attachments and discussions on that particular task. So we'll go ahead and click OK there. And then another great thing is that if I want these to be sent out on a recurring basis, that's 100% possible. I would just need to select that I want it to be sent out to Vince every Monday at 7 a.m. And so when I hit send, this will now be sent out to Vince every Monday at 7 a.m. So he'll be able to tell me where he's at with his particular task without being shared to the entire sheet. And so now what I'd like to do is actually create a tracking system for these tasks based on each individual. So each team member can jump in and update the rest of the team on the status of every task. And I can actually do this by inserting a symbols column. And what I'll do is I can right click up on the column header, select Insert Column Left. We'll name this column Status, and we will make this a symbols column. And we'll select the red, yellow, and light bulbs. Perfect. And so the reason I'm using the red, yellow, green light bulbs is because I want to have a quick visual for the progress of each task within each stage of this project. So since each team member is now accountable for their task, the assigned person for each task can just jump in and say, you know, the font section is running smoothly. The images section, we do have some issues on, but it's still on schedule. However, we do need some more help with that structure section. So I'll go ahead and assign these out real quickly. And so now all of my different tasks I now have a status for, and I'll know where they are in their particular stage. And that's really going to help me save time, as well as help my colleagues kind of report to me how they're doing on their tasks and let me know if they're going to need any more help. And so now that my team members are collaborating, real-time communication is critical for my projects. So as the project manager, I want to track the changes that my teammates are making and also highlight important dates so nothing falls through the cracks. So there's two types of alerts that I can use to achieve this. And the first would be to set up a notification. And we can do that just down on the Alerts tab right down here. And what we would do is select New Notification. And so just as an example, let's say we are waiting on Vince to change his section, his task section to green, because Steve can't start on the About section until that services section is finished. But what we can do is we can select Steve to receive an email right away when the status section changes. And so now as soon as Vince goes in there and updates that section, Steve's going to know, and so he'll know that he can get started on the About section, which is really going to help us stay on track and on task. And so the second way to set up an alert would be to set up a reminder. And reminders are automatic emails that remind me or my team members about a particular task. Because I don't want to have to worry about reminding my team each time they have something coming up. So I want to create a system that's going to do it for me. And so I know that Randy has a lot on his plate. So what we're actually going to do is move over onto his particular section, and we're going to do a reminder on just this task. So if I select reminder, I'm going to select for Randy to be reminded 2 days before the start date for this task. So once I click save, now Randy's going to receive an email 2 days before the start date for this task, so he'll know that he needs to get started, which is, once again, really going to help my team save time, because I don't have to be going through sending these reminders and making sure everyone's on task. SmartSheet's going to do it for me. So now that my team is involved in keeping up to date on their assigned tasks, I can also avoid overwhelming my inbox by using the highlighting changes capability. And I can set changes to be highlighted right over here on the toolbar. So once I select that button, I just need to hit on. And as you can see, everything is highlighted right now because we've changed just about everything. But if I really wanted to, I could go in here and I could select, if I wanted to have everything highlighted that changed since the last time I viewed this sheet. If I select that, since I'm still viewing this sheet, it's obviously not going to show anything, but that is an option. I'll turn that off for now. And so, another big challenge that my team has faced in the past for any project release is that we have a lot of meetings and a lot of communication, but we really need a central place for these. And so how can I get my team the resources they may need in a one-stop shop? So in order to do that, I'm going to use the Discussions tab at the bottom of the sheet for discussing workflow of the project as a whole. So what I'll do is click here, and I will simply say layout stage. And I'll say, hi team, the layout stage is running smoothly. And I'll hit save. And then as soon as I hit save there, it's automatically going to be placed in. That discussion will be in here in the layout stage discussion box. And it will tell you, who hosted the discussion, on what date, and then at what time. So it's going to help us keep track of when these discussions were made and kind of have the most up-to-date information. And so that can be done on the sheet level. However, it can also be done on the actual row level as well. So if we were to go in here and select the row menu, we can select to have a discussion on this row, and we'll let Dwayne know that images are to be pulled from the 2015 archive, and we'll hit save. And so as you can see, it's now just been added in here. And if I exit out of this, when Dwayne gets into this sheet, he's going to see that one of his tasks has a discussion right on it. And he'll be able to click and say, okay, so I need to be pulling all of these images from the 2015 archive. So he's going to know exactly what he needs to do because everything is in one place. Go ahead and save the sheet real quickly. And so this is keeping all project discussions in one central location, whereas we were previously searching messy inboxes for communication and files to track down a certain document. And I can also attach these files onto the sheet or the rows themselves as well. And so what I can do is can actually jump down to Steve's section. And I know for the product section, we do need our project release. We'll upload to the computer real quickly. And we'll get that uploaded in. So that file is now attached onto that row. However, you can also attach from Google Drive, OneDrive, Box, Dropbox, Evernote, so on and so forth. And then you can also link in URLs to this attachment section as well. So it is very versatile. But now that this has been loaded in, let's say Steve needs to go in there and make some edits on this. Well, he can download it, make edits, and then when he goes to upload it back, he would select the project release. And SmartSheet's going to know that there's two files in here with the exact same name. So it's going to ask if I want it to be a new version or if I want to attach it as a separate file. And so I know that it is a new version, so I'll go ahead and click OK. And as you can see, the line here is still one line. The V2 or version history button has now popped up. And so if you click on that, you'll see that both versions now reside in here. And you can see, what date they were added in, what time, and then by who. So that's really going to help us stay the most up-to-date that we can on this project, especially with our attachment. Perfect. And so now what I'd like to do is get a way to direct my attention through the different tasks and stages as the project gradually gets completed. So for this, I'd actually like to use conditional formatting. And think of conditional formatting as what data do I want to jump out of me or not jump out of me at a quick glance. So the conditional formatting button is going to be right over here on the toolbar, and this is going to help organize critical areas of my data. So what I can do is when I select this, I would just need to click New Rule, and then I will say if the finish date is in the past, I'll add one more condition here, and the status is green. Apply this format, strike through as well as the entire row. We'll hit OK. So as we can see, this data here has just immediately been given, since it did fit the criteria, it's immediately been changed. That formatting has changed there. So I know that when I jump into this sheet, I don't need to really focus on this section, the font section, or the East Coast launch, because those are completed. However, I do need to be focusing on all these other sections here, which is definitely going to help just in terms of visibility and knowing where we need to be working. We'll go up and we will save real quickly here. And so now that I've organized this project on a detailed level, I want to have a visual of how this release will progress over time. And so in order to do that, I can actually create a Gantt timeline view that has the same information as in the grid part of my sheet, but it's going to be looking at it a different way. So the way to do that is I will just select Gantt, and as you can see, these bars have automatically been populated in here, and that's because we do have dates in both the start and finish columns. So that's kind of where that information is coming from. But what we'll do is we'll turn on the dependencies real quickly here. And so with dependencies, I can track which tasks are reliant upon one another and therefore must get done on time. So, for example, I know that Dwayne can't work on images until fonts is completed. And in order to display that in this Gantt timeline, I can just click and drag to create a dependency between these two tasks. And then also, likewise, I know that structure can't be started until images is complete. So what I'll do is I will do the same thing, and now these three tasks are completely linked to one another. So if the fonts task gets pushed back, so will all these other tasks. If it gets moved forward, so will everything else, because there are these dependencies here, which is really going to help me, because if something changes in the project, I only need to change one date at that point. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save our sheet real quick. And so another great thing about this, about turning on dependencies, is that we actually have our duration column here. And what's nice is that I can go in here and, okay, I know that the About section actually isn't going to take 1 day. In fact, it's really only going to take 2 hours. And so we'll enter that in, and you can see it's now been added in here. And then the section has also been displayed in the Gantt timeline as well. And so you can add in different durations for these tasks. You can do weeks, days, hours, minutes, and even seconds. So we're going to know exactly how long this project is going to take just by using this duration column here, which is definitely going to help. So we'll go ahead and save the sheet at this point. And so there's also another way we can start looking at this data. And you know, it's kind of like the Gantt timeline where it's just viewing this data in a different way. However, if you want to view it in a calendar view, that's definitely possible. And so, as you can see, I just jumped in here and I added in the Gantt functionality, or the calendar functionality. So all of my different tasks and subtasks are now listed in this calendar, which is definitely going to help people on my team who would rather view it this way. Another great thing is that if I wanted to, I could overlay a Google Calendar on top of this, or I could publish this to a Google Calendar, as well as publish this to an iCal. So if you have an Outlook calendar or anything like that, that's definitely possible to sync the two, which is going to help because everything's going to be in the same place. Okay, so we'll jump back into the grid view real quickly. And so now let's take a quick step back and talk about how I need to be involving my boss on how this release is going. And so with reporting, I can update upper management on the bigger picture for this project and the progress that we're making without inundating them with all the details. And so what I'll do is I'll jump into the Home tab real quickly. I'll create a new report. We will say, so project release report, hit OK. And that has now been added in here, so we'll jump in here, and what's going to be pulling up is going to be our report builder. And this is essentially where we're going to be setting the criteria that we want to be pulled into this report. So it's going to be searching across our different sheets. So if we just first click on where, we will select a couple of these different sheets to pull information into it. Perfect. We don't need to focus on who right now, but we do want to focus on what. And we're going to be selecting everything that has a status of red. And before I run it, I'm actually going to be adding in a couple more columns here because I want to see kind of where this is going to be, and we need more information. So we'll select actuals, budget, if there's any comments that might be related, finish date, start date. Also, we're going to want the assigned to. We'll close that, and we'll go ahead and get this report ran. So as you can see, all this information has now been pulled from across my different sheets into this one report based on this being red. So it's really going to help me because I can actually work off of this report live. So if I wanted to, I could jump in here, and let's say Dwayne actually reached out to me, and he let me know that the status for this particular task has now been changed to green. Well, I can go in here, I can update that, save it, and then in my project release, you can now see that this task has been marked in green and complete now, just because I saved that within the report. So it is live and it runs two ways. And if I go back to the report, you can now see that it's off the report because it no longer fits that criteria. And so now, let's say I need to be sharing this with my manager. Well, I can do that by sharing it just using this tab, but let's say he doesn't want to have to sign in every time. He just wants this data. He doesn't need to make any edits, anything like that. But what we can do is we can click here and we can send this as an attachment. So if I just enter it, this is where I can select if I want it to be a PDF or an Excel file. But the great thing is I can actually schedule when this is going to go out. So I know that my boss wants this report every Monday and every Friday at 9 a.m. Okay, and then send. And so this is now set to be sent out every Monday, every Friday at 9 a.m. to my boss. So my boss is going to know where we're at in the project, and then also what we need to be focusing on the most. Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump back real quickly. And let's say we wanted to take this project one step further to where we can pull multiple reports, key metrics, link lists, and more into one project roll-up. Well, the way we do that is with our sites feature. And sites are going to give you the ability to track vital processes and metrics, as well as give you insight into your projects and work. And if you would like to know more about sites, please reach out to one of our representatives or take a look at our product tour section on site. We're definitely very excited about this, and it definitely is a great way to track your work. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and click home again. So as a project manager, I want a way to collect my team's updated employee and contact info while they are working on this project. Because this way, if anything comes up during the project release, and I need a way to get a hold of Steve immediately about how a risk could be affecting content tasks, I have his most updated phone contact information. And so what I'd like to use here would actually be our web forms feature. And our web form feature is really a great way to accept requests or gather data I need from my team members or clients. And so what we'll do here is we will create new, and we're going to be picking this from a template. And it's great using these templates because the structure is already pre-created, which means the structure of my web form is already going to be pre-created. So we'll go ahead and we will use this template. Okay. And so as you can see, there's already some pre-populated information here, as well as there's already been columns created. And this is our actual new grid, or images in the grid feature, which we're definitely very excited about because now you can really, match a face to the name every time. And so in order to get these web forms created, I'll move down to the web form section. I'll create a new form. We don't need our employees adding in their own pictures. We'll get rid of that. We do want them to enter in their name, their title, their date of hire. We don't need their home address right now. We do want their telephone number and employment status, but we can leave that as home. We'll go ahead and save that. And so the way to distribute this is we could just send out this link, and they'd be able, any employee would be able to click on it, and what they would essentially see would be this. So what we'll do here is just add in cost. He is the content manager. Actually hired today. And then he is a full-time employee. So once we submit this, all that information will now just immediately be submitted back into the sheet. So I'll refresh the sheet real quickly. And as you can see, Steve's information is now in here. So if I need to get in contact with him, I can, just by using this information here. So overall, the two great things about using web forms are that, one, they're very simple to design, and then two, the client or team member, as in this project release scenario, doesn't have to be logged into SmartSheet to submit the information. They just need that live URL link. So however you want to send it out, as long as they can have access, they'll be able to use this. Okay, perfect. So I know I have covered a lot today, and as you're working through SmartSheet, you're bound to run into some questions. And our Help Center is a great resource. So we have articles and videos on anything we have in SmartSheet. And we have videos if you're more of a visual learner. So you can actually get to the Help Center just by clicking that Help button right up in the top left corner. And so there's articles on all of our different features here. And as I was saying also, we do have our video center if you are more of a visual learner. So we have videos on all the different features, our recorded webinars and whatnot. And then also, something that's pretty important would be our template section. And so this is where you can go in and you can see all of the different templates that we've created. And they're kind of dispersed and distributed into the different departments that they can apply to. So we did go off that project management use case today. However, that's just one of the many different use cases that we have. So we have tons of different sales pipelines and whatnot, marketing, solutions, company management, finance, specialty, so on and so forth. There really is quite a bit that can be done. And so I wanted to switch gears real quickly and answer some of the questions you've submitted today. And it looks like there are a lot of questions that were asked throughout, so we're going to cover ones that pertain to the broader audience today. I'll go ahead and switch back up here. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, so I see here, the first question would be, how can I publish to my Outlook calendar? And the way to do that, if we jump back to the project release, we would just need to go to the calendar section, click on the Publish iCal, and then turn this on. And what you would need to do is copy and paste this URL to just subscribe from your calendar. So if you wanted to add to my calendar, you would just need to do it there, and then you can add it into Outlook, iCal, so on and so forth. That's a great question, though. Thank you for asking. Okay. Let's take a look. Okay. I have another question here that is, how do I create parent tasks and subtasks? And so that was that hierarchy function that we were talking about. And if I move back onto the grid, the way that I did this is that you just need to have 2 rows with information in them. So just for an example, we'll select this row 15, and since there already is information populated on the row above it, once we select this, we just need to hit this indent button here, and that's going to create that hierarchy. And so if you're trying to get rid of the hierarchy, it's very easy as well. It's just right next to that indent button, outdent. And so that would now get rid of that indent and that hierarchy. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so I have one here that is it possible to conditionally format the Gantt chart? And yes, it is. The way that we would do that is we'll just open up that Gantt chart real quickly. And what we could do is we click on the conditional formatting. We'll select this, and then right here, we'll just select that we want the Gantt chart to be green for anything that fits that criteria. And so as you can see, so since these tasks have already been completed, their bars on the Gantt chart have now also been turned green. So that's been reflected in both places. Save that. So that is all the time that we do have for questions today. However, we will have representatives reaching out to answer all of the other questions that were asked. So just switch gears real quickly. Okay, so now although we did go over quite a few features today, we're still just touching on the surface of what SmartSheet can accomplish. And so as you can see, there's tons of different integrations, extension apps, as well as different advanced capabilities and whatnot that we didn't touch on today. So there's tons that can be done with SmartSheet. There really is a multitude and quite a bit of versatility. And so for any other questions that you may have, just please feel free to reach out, and we'd be happy to answer those questions about SmartSheet. So you can email us at webinars@smartsheet.com or give us a call. But like I said before, there will be representatives reaching out and answering all the different questions that have been asked today. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining today, and I hope this was a helpful webinar for you, and have a great rest of your day.